Director Clarn of the Galactic Conservation Authority was having what could only be described as a Category 5 meltdown, which was impressive considering his species didn't technically have adrenaline. His 3 eye stalks were spinning in different directions, a sure sign that his stress levels had exceeded what most beings would consider survivable. "Explain to me," he said, his voice reaching a pitch that made nearby equipment vibrate, "how a creature that survived being dropped into a black hole, walked away from a supernova, and personally ended 3 separate extinction-level events, just wandered out of our maximum security facility?" Head of Security Grimlock, a hulking reptilian whose scales had turned an unfortunate shade of anxiety gray, shuffled his feet. "Well, sir, technically it didn't wander. It melted through 6 feet of reinforced durasteel, phased through our quantum barriers, and apparently just walked past the guard station while Jenkins was on his lunch break. Jenkins is fired. Jenkins is dead, sir. Heart attack when he saw the security footage. Then he's double fired," Clarn snapped, which didn't make any logical sense, but at this point, logic had left the building along with the Void Ripper. The Void Ripper. Even saying the name made hardened soldiers weep. It was the crown jewel of their conservation efforts, the only creature in the known universe with a perfect survival record. Scientists had tested it, repeatedly. They'd exposed it to hard vacuum, extreme radiation, temperatures that would vaporize tungsten, and once, accidentally, to a philosophy lecture that had caused 3 other species to simply give up on existence. The Void Ripper had been fine. More than fine. It seemed annoyed by the inconvenience. And now it was gone. "Where's the tracking beacon?" Clarn demanded. Grimlock pulled up a holographic display with trembling claws. "That's the other problem, sir. It's headed for a Class C planet. Pre-warp civilization, protected under the Non-Interference Directive." "Which planet?" "They call it Earth. Sector 7. The tracking signal is coming from a region they call Ohio." Clarn's eye stalks drooped. "Get me a ship, get me a team, and get me whatever diplomatic permits we need to enter that planetary system. Because if that thing decides to actually be what it's capable of being, we're looking at an extinction event that'll make the last Great Purge look like a minor scheduling conflict." Tommy Fletcher was having a pretty good day, all things considered. He'd gotten a B+ on his math test, which was better than the C- he'd been expecting, and Derek Pemberton had been out sick, which meant Tommy got to eat lunch without someone flicking mashed potatoes at his head. All in all, a solid Wednesday. The walk home from school was normal too, right up until he noticed something following him around the corner of Maple Street. It was about the size of a minivan, covered in midnight black, scales that seemed to absorb light, with 6 legs that ended in claws that looked like they could open a can or possibly a tank. Its head was mostly teeth, not mostly mouth with teeth in it, mostly teeth that happened to have a mouth somewhere in there. And its eyes glowed with this weird orange light that Tommy figured was probably not normal for Earth animals. "Shoo," Tommy said, waving his hand. "Go on, get." The creature sat down. Its tail, which had spikes that could probably be classified as war crimes, wagged back and forth, gouging grooves into the sidewalk. "Oh, come on," Tommy sighed. "I can't bring you home. My mom's gonna freak." The creature made a sound that was somewhere between a purr and the noise a garbage disposal makes when you accidentally drop a spoon in it. It scooted closer, leaving claw marks in the concrete. Tommy looked around. No one else was on the street, which was weird because something this big should have caused at least a minor panic. Then again, Mrs. Henderson next door was pretty much deaf, and Mr. Patterson was probably already 3 beers deep into his afternoon, so maybe it wasn't that weird. "Okay, look," Tommy said, trying to be reasonable. "If you follow me home, you have to be good. No eating the cat, no destroying the furniture, and definitely no freaking out my mom because she's already mad about the C I got in English last week." The creature blinked at him with those burning orange eyes. Then it opened its mouth and very carefully, very gently, took Tommy's backpack in its teeth and held it out to him. "Did you just help me with my backpack?" The tail wagged harder. A nearby mailbox fell over. Tommy took his backpack and adjusted the straps. "All right, fine, but you're gonna need a name. Can't just call you the scary thing that followed me home. Mom's big on names." He studied the creature for a moment. "You look like a Buttons, the Void Ripper, destroyer of worlds, survivor of cosmic apocalypse, the single most dangerous organism in the known galaxy." Made a happy chirping sound and trotted after the 12-year-old human like it had just won the lottery. Tommy's mom was definitely going to freak out. The Fletcher residence was a modest two-story house with vinyl siding that needed pressure washing and a front lawn that Linda Fletcher had been meaning to reseed for 3 years now. It was not the sort of place that typically hosted intergalactic incidents. Director Clarn's ship touched down in the middle of the street with all the subtlety of a dropped anvil, which immediately set off every car alarm within a 4-block radius. Clarn emerged flanked by Commander Vex, who had fought in the Battle of the Shattered Moons, survived the siege of Arcturus Prime, and once stared down an entire fleet of warships without blinking. He was 7 feet of solid muscle, covered in battle scars, and carried enough firepower to level a small city. He took one look at the claw marks leading up the Fletcher driveway and went pale, which was impressive for someone with purple skin. "That's the pattern," Vex said, his voice tight. "The Void Ripper is definitely here." "Then we go in, tranquilize it, and extract," Clarn said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "Sir, with all due respect, we tried tranquilizers once. We used enough sedative to knock out a battle cruiser. It sneezed." "Then what do you suggest, Commander?" Vex checked his weapons one more time. "Prayer, sir. Lots of prayer." They made it exactly halfway up the driveway before the front door opened and Linda Fletcher stepped out, still wearing her work scrubs from the hospital and holding a dish towel. She looked at the aliens, looked at the spaceship currently crushing the Patterson's hedge, and then looked at her flower bed where Clarn had stepped directly on her petunias. "Really?" she said. "The petunias? I just planted those last week." Clarn blinked all 3 eye stalks. This was not the reaction he'd expected. "Ma'am, I'm Director Clarn of the Galactic Conservation Authority, and we have reason to believe an extremely dangerous creature has entered your residence. We need to evacuate the area immediately." "You're talking about the thing in my garage with too many teeth?" "Yes, the Void Ripper. It's a Class 12 apex predator that has never been successfully contained and poses an existential threat to all life on this planet." Linda crossed her arms. "Is it going to eat my son? Well, no, probably not immediately, but is it going to destroy my house? That's not the point. Has it destroyed my house?" Clarn opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Not yet? Then I think we're fine," Linda said. She turned to Commander Vex. "And you, Mr. Military? You want to explain why you're pointing that ridiculous gun thing at my garage?" "Because I've got half a mind to call the police, except I'm pretty sure they're not equipped for whatever this is." Commander Vex, who had made enemy generals surrender with a single glare, found himself lowering his weapon. "Ma'am, that creature is the most dangerous organism in the galaxy." "Uh-huh. And my son brought home that awful Derek kid who taught him 6 swear words and tried to microwave my good Tupperware. I think I can handle dangerous. This is different. Is it house-trained?" "I'm sorry, what?" "The creature. Is it house-trained? Because if Tommy's keeping it, I'm not cleaning up after it." Clarn felt his brain attempting to process what was happening and failing spectacularly. "Ma'am, you don't understand. This creature cannot be kept as a pet. It's a galactic treasure, a conservation priority, and also capable of casual violence on a planetary scale." Linda looked unimpressed. "So you're telling me you kept something that dangerous in a zoo? A conservation facility with proper protocols and a zoo. You kept it in a zoo where it was apparently miserable enough to break out and follow my kid home." She pointed the dish towel at him like a weapon. "That sounds like a you problem, not a me problem." From inside the garage came a sound like a cement mixer full of hammers, followed by Tommy's voice saying, "Good boy, Buttons. Now drop it." Commander Vex made a sound like a dying tea kettle. "Did that child just say Buttons?" "That's what he named it," Linda said. "And before you start with the whole we need to take it back speech, I'm going to need to see some paperwork, licensing, proof of proper animal welfare standards, and a very good explanation for how it escaped from your maximum security facility in the first place." Director Clarn realized with dawning horror that he was being mom-managed by a human in her driveway, while the most dangerous creature in the galaxy played fetch in her garage. This was going to require so much paperwork. Commander Vex had faced down warships. He'd negotiated with terrorists. He'd once talked a planet out of launching its entire nuclear arsenal. But he had never, in his entire distinguished career, been forced to sit at a kitchen table drinking something called sweet tea while a 12-year-old lectured him on proper pet care. "So here's the thing," Tommy said, gesturing with a cookie. Buttons was clearly sad. "I could tell." "It's a Void Ripper," Clarn said, his eye stalks drooping with exhaustion. "It doesn't experience emotions like sadness. Then why was it sitting in the corner of its enclosure making that weird whimpering sound?" Vex and Clarn exchanged glances. What whimpering sound? Vex asked carefully. The one like this. Tommy made a noise that sounded like a whale singing at the bottom of the ocean mixed with a creaky door hinge. Clarn's face went through several colors. That's its hunting call. It makes that sound before it disembowels prey. No, that's its sad sound, Tommy said with absolute certainty. The hunting sound is different. More like, he made another noise that made both aliens flinch and reach for their weapons. How do you know that? Vex demanded. Because Buttons made it at a squirrel this morning. Didn't even catch it, though. I think he needs glasses. From the garage came an enthusiastic crashing sound, followed by what might have been purring, or might have been the sound of reality tearing at its seams. The creature, Clarn said, trying very hard to remain professional, has survived being shot into a star. It has walked through a supernova. It once ate a weapon designed to erase matter from existence and burped. It does not need glasses, and it absolutely does not need a boy to take care of it. Then why did it follow me home? It was a simple question, a child's question, and neither alien had an answer. Linda returned from the garage, carrying a tablet showing security footage. While you two were arguing with my son, I looked up your organization. This thing has been in captivity for 47 years. Never had another member of its species to interact with. Kept in what amounts to a concrete box. Poked and prodded for science. She set the tablet down hard enough to make the aliens jump. So yeah, I'm thinking it followed Tommy home because he's the first being in half a century who treated it like something other than an experiment. The regulations are clear, Clarn protested weakly. The Void Ripper is classified as a conservation priority. It must be maintained in a secure facility for study and protection. Protection from what? Tommy asked. You said it's literally unkillable. Well, yes, but... And you said it's the last of its species, right? Correct, which is why... So who's it going to mate with in your zoo? You keeping it there to study it? Or because you want a cool exhibit? Vex rubbed his temples, which was difficult because his species didn't technically have temples. Kid, you don't understand. That thing out there, it's ended civilizations. Not on purpose, not out of malice, but because when something is that powerful and that indestructible, accidents happen. Big accidents. He's been here for 6 hours and the only thing he's destroyed is half of Mrs. Patterson's garden gnome, and honestly, that gnome was super creepy, so I'm calling that a win. That's 6 hours. What about 6 months? 6 years? Tommy shrugged. I'll train him. I got Buttons to sit on command in like 20 minutes. You got the Void Ripper to sit on command, Clarn said flatly. Yeah, want me to show you? He's also learning stay, but he's not great at it yet, and he only ate half the cat food, which shows restraint. Commander Vex pulled out his communicator and began typing rapidly. I'm messaging Galactic Command. They need to update Earth's threat assessment. Immediately. The creature has to come back with us, Clarn said, but his voice had lost its authority. He sounded like a man, or rather, an alien who knew he'd already lost the argument, but hadn't figured out how yet. Linda refilled. Everyone's tea. So here's what's going to happen. You're not taking Buttons anywhere until I see proof he wasn't being mistreated. And we're going to need a proper review of your facility's animal welfare standards. And probably a mediator. A mediator? Clarn's eye stalks actually tied themselves in a knot. This is clearly a custody issue. A custody issue? It's the most dangerous creature in the galaxy. It's a living thing that was lonely and found a friend, Linda said firmly. Now, are we going to be reasonable adults about this, or do I need to get my lawyer involved? Because I promise you, Karen Morrison down the street will take this case just for the publicity. In the garage, Buttons made his happy chirping sound, followed by Tommy yelling, No, no, we don't chew on the lawnmower. Director Clarn realized he was going to have to file paperwork that had never been filed before in the history of the Galactic Conservation Authority. Possibly in the history of the galaxy, Linda Fletcher had negotiated. She'd negotiated with insurance companies that didn't want to pay claims. She'd negotiated with hospital administrators over staffing schedules. She'd once negotiated with a 4-year-old Tommy over why he couldn't wear his Batman costume to a funeral. This was just another Tuesday. Director Clarn was beginning to understand why humanity had been flagged as approach with caution in the galactic database. So let me get this straight, Vex said, reviewing the notes on his datapad with the exhausted expression of someone who'd aged 20 years in 2 hours. You want visitation rights for the Void Ripper. The galaxy's most dangerous predator. Joint custody, Linda corrected, pouring herself more tea. Buttons stays with us on weekends and holidays. You get him during the week for your research or whatever, provided you improve his living conditions. And Tommy gets supervised visits whenever he wants. This is insane, Clarn muttered, but he was already pulling up the Galactic Conservation Authority's regulation database on his portable terminal. There's no precedent for this. None. I don't even know what forms to file. Form 2847B covers interspecies custodial arrangements, Linda said helpfully. All three eye stalks swiveled toward her. How did you possibly know that? I Googled your organization's website while you were having your meltdown. You really should update your frequently asked questions section, by the way. Very unclear about your adoption policies. We don't have adoption policies. We're a conservation authority, not a pet store. Well, now you're going to need them. Linda slid a handwritten list across the table. These are my conditions. Larger enclosure with environmental enrichment. Regular wellness checks by an independent veterinarian. No invasive procedures without medical necessity. And weekly video calls so Tommy can check on him. Vex stared at the list like it was a bomb. You wrote custody conditions for a creature that eats asteroids. He ate cat food this morning. Fancy feast. Seemed to like the salmon flavor. From the garage. Mom. Buttons learned shake. Come look. In a minute, honey. Linda called back, then returned her attention to the increasingly distressed aliens. Now, about those living conditions. I saw the footage. That enclosure was basically a concrete cell. It was reinforced durasteel capable of containing a nuclear explosion, Clarn protested. It was depressing. No wonder he broke out. Commander Vex, who'd been silent for several minutes while frantically messaging Galactic Command, looked up from his communicator. My superiors want to know if you're serious about the video calls. Completely serious. Tommy's going to miss him. This is his first real pet, if you don't count the goldfish that died in 48 hours. His first pet is the most dangerous organism in known space. Every child's first pet is a learning experience. Commander, Clarn made us sound like a deflating balloon. Even if we agreed to this absolutely unprecedented, completely unregulated, potentially civilization-ending arrangement, what happens when the creature decides it doesn't want to go back? We can't exactly drag it into a transport ship. That's easy, Tommy said, appearing in the doorway with Buttons looming behind him like a toothy shadow. You just gotta ask nice. Watch. Buttons, come here, boy. The Void Ripper bounded over with enough enthusiasm to crack the kitchen floor tiles. It sat directly on Tommy's feet, its tail wagging hard enough to dent the refrigerator. Good boy. Now, these are my friends, Director Clarn and Commander Vex. They're gonna take super good care of you during the week, okay? And I'll see you on Saturday. Buttons made the whimpering sound that Tommy insisted was sadness and definitely not a hunting call. I know, buddy, I know. But it's like school. I gotta go to school. You gotta go to their facility. But we'll have weekends. And Mom says maybe you can come to my birthday party next month. Absolutely not, Clarn and Vex said simultaneously. We'll discuss it, Linda said, which meant yes in Mom language, and everyone at the table knew it. Commander Vex pulled up a holographic contract. This is against every regulation in the book. Multiple books. Some books that haven't been written yet because no one imagined we'd need them. So we're making history, Linda said cheerfully. Tommy, go get Button's favorite toy. He should have something familiar at the facility. He really likes the tennis ball. The tennis ball? Clarn asked weakly. Yeah, the one he caught in his mouth after I threw it. It's only a little melted. Director Clarn pulled up the contract form, which had to be adapted from about 6 different existing forms because nothing quite covered this situation, and began filling in information he never thought he'd type. Species, Void Ripper. Status, shared custody arrangement. Primary guardian, Tommy. Fletcher, human, age 12, Earth. Secondary guardian, Galactic Conservation Authority. His eye stalks drooped in defeat. I'm going to have to explain this to the Galactic Council. Better you than me? Vex muttered, already dreading the incident report he'd have to file. Linda smiled and refilled their tea. See? Problem solved. Everyone's happy. In the garage, Buttons knocked over a shelf, and Tommy yelled that it was okay. Accidents happen. Neither alien felt particularly happy. But they did feel definitively outnegotiated by a human nurse and her preteen son. The galaxy would never be the same. The paperwork took 4 hours. The Galactic Conservation Authority's legal department had to be woken up at 3 in the morning Galactic Standard Time. 2 lawyers quit on the spot when they heard what they were being asked to file. A third started laughing and couldn't stop for 20 minutes. But eventually, it was done. Tommy stood in the driveway, hugging Buttons around what might have been a neck, or possibly just a particularly thick part of his torso. You be good, okay? No eating the other exhibits, no breaking out. And remember what we practiced about inside voices. Buttons made a rumbling sound that registered on seismic equipment 3 states over but was, comparatively speaking, pretty quiet. That's my boy. Tommy stepped back and wiped his eyes. I'll see you Saturday. We're gonna go to the park. Absolutely not, Clarence said automatically, then caught Linda's look. We'll discuss appropriate visitation locations. Commander Vex had Buttons on what could generously be called a leash, though it was actually a reinforced titanium cable rated for towing spacecraft. Buttons was following along docilely, occasionally looking back at Tommy with those glowing orange eyes. This is the weirdest day of my life, Vex muttered, and I once watched a star collapse into a black hole from half a mile away. You'll need to sign these, Linda said, handing Clarn a folder. Visitation schedule. Dietary requirements. He likes the salmon flavor. Remember and emergency contact information. My cell number's on top. Your cell number. For the Void Ripper. For Buttons. And yes, if anything seems wrong, you call me immediately. Clarn took the folder like it might explode, which, given the situation, wasn't entirely out of the question. They were loading Buttons into the transport ship he went willingly after Tommy gave him one last scratch behind what might have been ears when a car pulled into the driveway. Tommy's dad, Robert Fletcher, climbed out carrying a briefcase and looking exhausted. He worked in insurance claims, which meant he'd spent the last 3 days in Cincinnati, dealing with a warehouse fire. He was thinking about a beer, a shower, and maybe watching whatever game was on TV. He saw the spaceship. He saw the aliens. He saw the massive creature with too many teeth being guided into said spaceship by his son. He looked at Linda. Linda looked back. Do I want to know? Robert asked. Tommy made a friend. It followed him home. We're doing joint custody with the Galactic Conservation Authority. Robert set down his briefcase, loosened his tie. Did we at least get proof of vaccinations? Robert, it's an alien creature. I don't think Earth vaccines. Then we're getting alien vaccines. I'm not having that thing give Tommy space rabies or whatever. He walked past the stunned aliens, patted Buttons on what might have been a shoulder, and headed for the front door. I'm taking a shower. When I come back down, I want the full story. And someone better tell me we're not liable if that thing accidentally destroys the moon or something. We have insurance. Clarn called after him desperately. Galactic Standard coverage. Better be good insurance, Robert said, and disappeared into the house. Tommy waved as the ship lifted off. Buttons visible through the transparent sections pressing what might have been a nose against the window. The creature made one last sound, the sad sound. Definitely the sad sound before the ship accelerated into the atmosphere and vanished. Saturday, Tommy said to himself. Just gotta make it to Saturday. Inside the ship, Commander Vex was typing his incident report with trembling hands. Incident report. Void Ripper recovery classification. Unprecedented status. Recovered. Sort of. Casualties. 0. Miraculous damage assessment. 3 petunias. Half a garden gnome. 1 kitchen floor. Current status. Shared custody arrangement with human juvenile. Pending weekly review. Recommendation. Update Earth's planetary assessment from primitive pre-warp to unpredictable and potentially more dangerous than previously assessed. Humans have achieved what no other species in galactic history has managed. They have domesticated the undomesticatable through a combination of complete fearlessness and what can only be described as aggressive maternal negotiation. Tactics. Additional note. The creature responds to the name Buttons and knows 3 commands: sit, stay, and shake. This should be impossible. It is not impossible. Requesting philosophical support team to help process implications. Secondary note. Subject appears genuinely happy for first time in 47 years of captivity. Recommend serious review of conservation facility protocols. Final note. If Tommy Fletcher asks to adopt anything else, deny immediately, and do not engage in negotiation with his mother. Repeat. Do not engage. Director Clarn read the report over Vex's shoulder and added one last line. Addendum. Buttons is scheduled for a video call with Tommy Fletcher every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Earth Eastern Time. This is now official GCA protocol. Yes, I'm aware how that sounds. In the cargo hold, Buttons curled up on the slightly melted tennis ball and made a contented rumbling sound that was probably happiness. Probably. In the Fletcher backyard, Tommy was already setting up a welcome home banner for Saturday. Linda was Googling how to alien-proof a garage. Robert was on his second beer and had decided not to ask questions. And somewhere in the galactic bureaucracy, a form labeled Interspecies Custody Agreement, first instance, was being filed in a database where it would confuse archivists for the next 1,000 years. Humanity had officially made contact with the wider galaxy. The galaxy was still trying to figure out what had just happened, but Buttons had a friend, and really, that was what mattered. Even if that friend was a 12-year-old from Ohio who thought the universe's most dangerous predator just needed some salmon-flavored cat food and a good scratch behind the ears. Turns out, he was right.